We tend to have a reputation for being fairly unfiltered. We do cutting edge topics, and surprisingly, you would think that anything related to humans is not cutting edge anymore. In fact, it's probably more cutting edge than ever. Carbon-based life forms still matter, and Jessica will be talking about that today. So today's session is the TDR advantage and redefining how we engage technical buyers. And as a background, and this is the first session of the fall 2025 season for SAMI. And for those of you who've been here before, we've covered a lot of topics within go-to-market recently, which is still relevant. And the topic that we're talking about today is critical to go-to-market. We've covered a lot of AI. Uh, and AI is turning out to be very, very beneficial, but not necessarily the panacea. We'll have more AI sessions as well. But we've always kept a human element. And whether it's going to be BDRs, SDRs, and what I love about today's topic is TDRs. And so when we got introduced to Jessica, we realized, oh my God, this is such a critical topic. Think about it. Many of our solutions these days are very, very complex. And when I manage sales teams, if it's a complex product, historically, I brought in sales engineers. But this is going to be somewhat different. How do we engage them in a different process? And Jessica is going to be talking about that. So we can't imagine that, okay, suddenly AI is going to solve all the technical challenges that we have along the sales path. And in fact, Jessica is going to basically go through why that isn't the case. So we're going to cover these elements this morning. I think it's critical if you have a product that's not necessarily self-serve, that has a little bit of complexity, by all means, this is going to be critical. And like every SAMI call, Jessica's going to give you elements that you can apply not just 5 minutes after the call, but over the next, year plus. So that'll be good. So Jessica, what we're going to do is I'd like you to introduce yourself because you'll do a better job than I can. And then we'll jump into the presentation. And again, for everyone, by all means, introduce yourself into the chat. Feel free to drop your LinkedIn profile, ask questions there, and I'll be interrupting Jessica along the way. I'll be looking at your questions and moderating as will Pam. All right, so Jessica, turning it over to you.
Awesome. Thanks, Rob. Nice to meet everyone virtually. So I'm Jessica Nelson. I am the Director of Growth at Hi Marley. I've been in the software space for, I'll call it 15 years, but we'll give or take on that, building out different functions in terms of SDR teams, AE teams, field marketing, a lot of pipeline strategy in anywhere from like HR solutions to highly complex API solutions. Right now, like I mentioned, at Hi Marley, making the insurance world lovable, building out some of the go-to-market function. Um, I had a whole slide on this, but I had a fun fact that I thought was like medium relevant to this group and to just like the time in the year that we are with the Apple release, that one of the more fun things that I look back at in like my marketing and sales career was a moment where I was in my MBA program with a team that we were working on a project presenting to a very specific, and feel free to message me and I'll tell you more details, phone provider where we were coming up with innovative ideas to help them expand their market share. We said, here's a Japanese-based competitor that like you could buy out to the iPhone. They said Apple will never survive in the mobile technology field. 17 versions later, I think they might have been wrong. So that's my medium relevant fun fact. So super excited for this. This is a topic that is like very near and dear to my heart. It was an interesting, I'm going to share my screen. If you can't see it, let me know if we get into any
It's looking great, Jessica.
Yeah, looks good.
call. And as mentioned, like jump in with any questions. TDR, right? I'm going to skip this because we went through all that. We'll go through like the why, the how, the when, like why did I do this? Why did we move this forward? What did it look like? What were some of the things that worked? What were some of the things that like did not work at all? And what were some of the results that came out of it? So Like, why even consider the non-SDR route? So at that moment in time, which was the last team I was on, we were selling to an incredibly technical buyer. So selling an API product to developers, CTOs, engineers, people who traditionally do not want to be spoken to by sales. They want to find their own journey. They are in the product. They want to build things. The last thing they want to do is jump on a sales call. And half of the time, the person that is in the product is not who's actually buying. So there were thousands and thousands of signups, right? People going in, free signups, right? A very traditional PLG type model, self-serve. And we had a team of SDRs that I had built out that was using like very traditional model. Hey, saw you signed up, like want to take a sales meeting. I know, shocking, it didn't work, right? So if we'd get messages back that would be like in retrospect, reading them, like, why did you waste my time? Like, I want help. Like, I'm trying to navigate within the product. I do not want to talk to you. So it seemed like there was a clear opportunity to turn this from something where we were being highly transactional in a very traditional SDR model of talk to you, set the meeting, move you to a business conversation to something where it's like, can we offer them more value? Can we come to them where they're at? We are assuming that they're likely in the different products that offered something very similar, and actually guide them in this evaluation because if they're spending the time coding, they're in there, they're like looking at the docs, they're trying to accomplish something, like how can we meet them where they're at in their buying journey? And honestly, the SDRs were not like they weren't enjoying their life talking to these people, saying I don't want to talk to you, or a lot of help me fix this one specific thing. And they're like, I don't know how to fix this. I'm an SDR, like I am sales focused. I have nothing for you. So it was frustrating for the buyer, frustrating for the SDR. We were getting almost zero pipeline out of the entire interaction. So we thought, let's try something new, right? So that was the why. I assume that a lot of people are in that same situation of how can we get the people who are more technical or who don't want to speak to us or just are not interested to engage, and what does that look like? So
Yeah. So Jessica, a question around this. Were you offering, we're using an API example right now. Were
mhm.
you offering the API for free during the sales process? And, is that the only time we can actually look at a TDR is when they have access to a product? Or if they don't have access to a specific product, does a TDR, from what you've seen so far in your intro, does a TDR also have a role?
So we had moved from a 30-day trial to just a freemium model where we were just allowing unlimited free access, right? Like you can have the docs, you can have like X amount of usage. Once you hit this point, then you're going to move into a paid model. I think honestly, it would work in most technical sales models, right? If you are in any type of motion where you may have a technical buyer or someone who just has that, like they don't in their personality want to talk to a salesperson, or they want more information, or they're a more investigative buyer, I think it would work. There's likely nuances to it where if they're not in the product, pieces of the model are not going to work because the beauty was that we could actually see what they were doing and see like what they're trying to build. And some of the interactions were more around what are you building? How can I help you? What are you trying to accomplish? Which then led to more conversation with them. But I could see that even if you didn't have like a freemium model or a free trial, it could work. It probably wouldn't work as well, but it could work.
Okay, thanks, Jessica. I think a lot of people are surprised that even with the freemium or some sort of technical model, so much stuff dies early on because they haven't gotten over that technical hump. And I just think this is going to be critical. And again, AI is not going to solve this particular issue. Thanks, Jessica.
Yeah, and it's interesting because especially when you're selling something and you think that you've made it very intuitive for your buyer to find what they need, right? You're like, "Oh, I mean, I have the docs, like the docs are on the website. Like I have the user guide, right? It's like it's all there." And they're very technical. They know what they're doing. They know how to code. Like they're going to see it. They're going to know exactly what to do. I mean, at the end of the day, they don't know always what they're looking for, and you know where it is better, and that like just like showing them where it is, you'd be amazed how much easier it makes it for them. Okay, so great idea, right? That's CRO. Amazing idea. This is great. Like, let's do this. How are you going to find this person, right? Like traditional SDR. It's not, I wouldn't say easy to find an SDR, right? But it is because you know what you're looking for. It's likely someone who maybe they're coming out of a college program, they want to do sales, they are very tuned into the SDR model, right? Like, I know I'm going to come in, I'm going to set meetings, I'm going to make calls, I'm going to send emails, I'm going to follow cadences, I'm going to do a very traditional playbook. But looking for someone who is like open and willing to do that, but also knows how to code, can read some code, and is also very like investigative, where you're going to have people coming to the website. You want them to do the research, you want them to be able to have those conversations, right? So not so much on the coding and engineering persona where they don't want to get on a sales call or they don't want to write an email, right? So they have to have that personality side, but also be able to look at some medium complex code and be able to navigate through that and also know where they have to stop. So I think it was an interesting journey to figure out how do I find this person who is almost like a support persona, but slightly more sales and where they want their career to go, because it is still that like entry level type role, is somewhere in the solution engineering role. Maybe they do want to be in support. Maybe they want to be an AE, but it's different than that traditional like SDR mindset.
Yeah, Jessica, this is where one of my questions were kind of coming from, like the HR tech world, which is my jam. So I was thinking about how you staff for this. And is this a build or buy? Meaning, like, do you go out into the open market and post a job posting for, as you say, this non-existent job? Or do you take somebody out of support? Do you take somebody out of maybe software QA? I don't know, depending on what their interests and what their career goals are. So curious to know, either in your experience or just, being in this day to day, which of those you think is the approach to staff this role?
So we looked at both paths and posted it, interviewed externally, thought about would we do this internally? The roadblock that we ran into with the internal was really, I mean, you're building this career path for them to move into support. So if you think about like the tiers of where they're moving in from a career path, you wouldn't necessarily want someone to move from support into this type of role. So we ended up hiring externally someone who had been in a support role at a different company. So it worked out in that way, but there was a lot of trial and error in terms of like what are we actually looking for when we're interviewing these candidates? Who are the people who actually have to meet this person? So it ended up being some of the sales team, some of the marketing team, and then some of the customer success and support organization were part of the interview process to really figure out, okay, are they technical enough? Because I don't know, right? Like I don't know how to code. I can't screen for that type of things. I can tell from a sales side, like, are they like, do they have that sales passion and drive? And then from the success support side, it was more, do we want this person interacting with our customers who are likely the people who are going to be on the website talking to the chatbot during the day, right? And what does that interaction actually look like?
Yeah,
Yeah.
this is
Carol
great.
raises a great point in the chat, right? There's a lot of recent CS graduates on the market, entry level, and developer roles are few. I'm just reading her comment, which totally resonated with me. And this could be an interesting path for them. So, just curious, did you pursue that, or how does that resonate with you, Jessica?
Yeah, and that's so generally when interviewing SDRs, it's looking for like, okay, where do you see yourself, right? Like what type of role do you want to get into? What are you like, do you want to be in marketing? Do you want to be in like an AE? Do you want to be in customer success? For this, it was like, do you want to be on Eng, right? Do you want to be a developer? Do you want to be in support? Do you want to be in solution engineering? That was our dream, was that we'd find somebody who would really want to get into a solution engineering role and not understand like what is the path to get there, or really know what that is. Because being a newer grad, you're like, I hear this, like I've seen it. I don't actually know what I can do today to get into that role. So yeah, that 100% was a piece of what we would ask.
Yeah, so Jessica, there we've got some great questions slash comments here. The You're just touching upon, and George, we'll touch yours, and Aaron, I want to get back to yours in just a second. So where is the line? Where, most organizations, from an organization, I should say from an organizational structure perspective, are a little bit convoluted. So where's the line here with the TDR? Is what's the report? Now, George, if you don't mind, I'll embellish your question as well. What does this look like? Okay, is it within the sales organization? Was it in the marketing organization? And is there a handoff to customer support slash success? Where does this fit into an organization? And I know the answer is most likely it depends, but from your experience, what do you see structurally? Where does this belong?
So I firmly believe that SDR and TDR falling into the SDR team sits in sales, right? And the reason for that is just the pipeline implications, right? At the end of the day, you want SDRs, TDRs, BDRs, XDRs, however you're going to look at it, driving pipeline, right? That is their primary function. You want some type of pipeline coming out at the end. So the person who cares about pipeline the most and can be most tied to that is generally going to be sales. That said, for TDR, the way that, and this was a highly debated topic both before we agreed on the role, before we made the hire, as the hire got onboarded, and then as the role progressed, where does this like, who gets reporting? Where are their dotted lines? Dotted lines make things very fuzzy. So it sat in sales under me and under the team that I led, and then had a lot of interaction with success and support because of the interactions with customers. And then also our solution engineering sat within success and support as well. So it was spending a lot of time with those teams, but at the end of the day, having the true metrics coming back to sales, because if there's no pipeline coming out of it, like what are we actually driving? Is it just customer support interactions? Is that not something that support could be handling directly? So tying very specific pipeline targets to it and sitting within sales made like some of it clear, and then having a decent amount of like the training and onboarding sit within success and support helped from that capacity.
Okay, perfect. And there's a couple things, and then we can let you get on. The question board is lighting up, so this is clearly a hot topic. Aaron was talking about sort of the sales process is one of the benefits of TDR, guide the persona technical user to the fastest value. This also implies sort of Carol raised a question that Pam referenced about CS grads. Sometimes the technical people that come in don't necessarily see the forest for the trees, and they're so focused on, the present problem versus where the customer's going. What's the role of sales enablement? That would be, question number one. And then, we were also asked, okay, in addition to this, how do you comp these people? So two questions there.
Yeah. So I guess to separate it. So in terms of the sales enablement, I guess the question is like, how do you train them appropriately? Am I getting
Yeah,
that?
exactly. How do we turn around and make them focus on the solution? The end game, getting the sale versus, getting so wrapped around, the variables of an API call.
Yeah, and that was probably the biggest challenge to solve for because the persona that you're hiring gets so interested in like the project that the person is doing and ends up either oversolving instead of passing it over to support or to like customer success if they're already a customer, right? They get so interested in that you do have to manage to that and make sure they are very clear in terms of like here's your guidelines and setting up the playbook in a way where they understand this is where I pass it off. And then also making sure that there's a good amount of visibility from all of the different functional leaders to see what they're doing and that everyone's communicating because the last thing you want is to get a message that's like, why is your TDR trying to like uncode and recode for someone and trying to do something because I mean it and it's a wonderful problem to have because they are trying to help and trying to solve and trying to support people, but they also are not the technical expert, right? That's somebody who's either in engineering or in support, and sometimes they didn't do it right, which was then you have someone in support trying to unpack what they just did. So really setting a clear line and saying, if it gets to this point, you need to pass it. Like you need to put it into Zendesk, you need to move it over to support. And I know you want to help them, and I know they're going to keep coming back to the website and asking you to help them, but you just have to not, and you have to tell them you're not the person. It's very similar with SDRs where they get to a point, and this is when I always think this is where they're ready to get promoted, where they just want to go so deep into discovery, right? And then they want to demo and they want to do all the things. You're like, okay, you get to this point in the process, SDR, and you stop. So TDR, same thing. You get to this point, you need to stop and you need to pull in somebody who's your counterpart. From a comp perspective, it was very interesting. We did MBO for the first quarter just because we had no idea like how things were going to look. We thought the best model was going to be attaching it to an increase in MQL conversion. So we had two sets of MQLs. One was like a hand raiser, and the second was more of like a sign up model, but sign up with high intent. So the thought was, let's see if we can move the MQL2, right, which was the non-hand raiser, high intent, like better Firmo MQL from X% to X%. And then we realized from a reporting perspective, there wasn't enough reporting to actually tie that to how somebody got paid in a way that was fair. So I'd say if you don't have really clear data and you don't feel like really good about your MQL model, it's tricky to tie it to that. We ended up tying it to pipeline, like very similar to SDRs, but more so on closed one, just because there was a good amount of like the SMB mid-market deals that could move with like a great amount of velocity, that even though it was highly tied to moving enterprise deals forward because we were moving from like a mid-market to an enterprise motion, there it, like the tying to closed one deals ended up making a lot of sense as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah, thank you, Jessica. Great question so far. We'll let you move on with the deck now. Thanks, everyone. Keep the questions coming. This is more active than we see recently, that we've seen recently.
All right. So operationalization. Well, I think I got that word almost right. So we had a decent tech stack, which was good. So we walked into it knowing that we already had qualified set up, right? Or like an intercom or whatever chatbot you have going. And that's, I think, where we first saw that there was a problem, just looking at the interactions that the SDRs who were manning the chatbot were having, and just be like, oh, what's going on here? Using a combination of HubSpot and MadKudu, where we were pulling out intent, pulling out some of the Firmo data, and then we were very lucky to have an extremely curated list of target accounts. So we knew the right accounts. We knew that we were already doing heavy ads to them. SDRs were doing like a lot of outbound. And then it was setting up a cadence of nurture that instead of being like, hey, do you want to take a sales meeting? It was much more, hello, I'm your technical concierge. I'm here to assist you as your journey goes on. Also, feel free to look for me on the website. I am a real person. Like, if you see the chatbot as you're going in and out and looking for docs, that's me. So it was looking at the top accounts and creating this like white glove experience where it was pulling in either the product expert or somebody on end. So again, having a very curated tier one list. And if you did see someone from one of those accounts, alerting either the AE, the product, or it was like there was a I mean, it's a whole other story in terms of like what that process looked like, but it was highly built out where it's like, okay, the alarm bell's gone off. We have a top account on the website. They've come back from an ad that's been running, or they came back from the SDR message. How do we now interact with this person who is looking at the docs and make sure that we understand what are they trying to build? Is this like an edge use case? Is this a core use case? Like what's actually happening here? Okay. And I'm happy to give like very specifics on the tech stack, but it was like pretty straightforward. Everything synced well. So, which was nice. Um, yeah, so it was really looking at, again, creating this whole flow where rather than the person getting this like very, what are you looking to buy? Like, when is your project going? It was much more, what are you building? How can I support you? Did you find what you're looking for in the docs? There are some tools I know now that like I think Canny might be one of them. I can't remember where it's like you can actually type in if you're looking for docs and it'll pull it back for you. We were using that, but on the support side, so this was in tandem to that, and there was a decent amount of build-in for like self support. So like there was AI within the chatbot, but the TDR would always be able to like see what was happening. And if it was a top tier account, it'd be flagged immediately. Very easy. So it again really was there to build that rapport, right? And have somebody being like, oh, this has been so great. You're so helpful, right? The most interesting first situation we ran into that for me proved it out was we had a top account that the SDR had tried. I mean, it's like you would look and you'd see the SDR has sent like 4,000 outreaches, right? So this specific account, I can't remember if it's a logo on the website, so I'm not gonna say which company it was, but they like literally 4,000 like emails, voicemails, like all the calls, all the LinkedIn's to all the people, to like 120 contacts at a super large enterprise company. TDR sees that one of their developers has come in and built something, like something small under a Gmail. Very typical, right? Like developers love signing up for things in Gmail. It's not going to trigger anything in HubSpot, but they see it, they see what they're doing. They're like, hi, can I help you? Like, are you finding everything you need? The developer's like, I actually am not finding everything I need. I'm trying to find this one specific thing. This is what I like. This is the code error that I keep running into. They're like, great. Let me pull in my person who handles that specific product. So they pulled them all into a thread. They're like, this is amazing. You just unblocked me. Now I'm doing exactly what I was trying to do. And they're like, great. This is like what are you trying to accomplish with this project? Like, well, like this is our timeline. Okay, when it seems like you're ready to start talking, like, and you want to move forward, let us know. They continue the email conversation. At some point, it was like probably 4 weeks later, which makes sense from a build perspective. The guy comes back. Hey, seems like everything's working as I thought. It's probably a good time for us to actually start talking about how we're going to pay for this. Loops in the AE. The AE is like, oh, great. Like, I'm here to talk commercials with you, here to support. They're like, wonderful. This has been a great experience. Everything's like moving forward. Super easy handoff to the AE, right? Very simple in terms of what the solution engineer is able to show, right? Because they're able to know exactly what the use case is, what they're trying to build. Oh, this is somebody else who's trying to do the same thing. Check out what we've done. The like move to close, very smooth, nice six-figure deal that otherwise would have been lost because we never knew that the developer was so clogged at the beginning and wasn't getting what they needed. So it was wonderful.
So Jessica, this is I love the story, and having lived it more on the SE side, this is great. What I wanted at the beginning of this process, where you have the TDR engages, I've got strong opinions. I'm going to try to filter here about intent data, and with intent data, do you feel that intent data? I know SDRs I tend to abuse it quite a bit. Does intent data work better with TDRs? Is there some sort of signal that we're seeing that the TDR should jump in, or are we still going to have the same, angst over intent data?
I think that the difference was because SDRs get very excited, right? They're like, this is like, oh, I'm so excited. This person, they're here, they're on the books. Like, this is the best day of my life, right? I think the difference with the TDR is they would be able to see what a person was doing. And for me, like moving from because I was in the HR tech space for a long time as well, and then moving into API, I was like, oh, like APIs are like really technical and like this, like what are people looking at? You would see people coming to specific pages. And if you asked, so I had a very technical CEO, and if you asked him about the pages that they'd come to, he would be able to tell you, like, oh, that page means nothing. Like it doesn't matter that they're looking at that page. That gives nothing at all from an intent perspective. But if they're on this page, like this means something that they're actually coding. And we didn't necessarily care that they were like reading a case study or like reading this article. Like, that's great. It's like, we love that they're reading things. But if they're on this specific page, this means that they're coding something. They have a project. They are trying to accomplish something. So the difference between when the TDR would pounce, right? Like I think qualified called it the pounce. So the difference between the two scenarios would be SDR is excited no matter what, right? Like, or no matter who it is in the organization. The TDR could quickly see what they were trying to do and the pages that they were doing and understand more of the coding mindset. So, like, depending on whatever persona you're selling into, like, they understood what they were looking at and reading because you can, like, see what they're scrolling on. You can navigate through like, is this actually someone there or is it just like false intent data? And because there were so many people and they were so hyper focused on giving that right experience to the right people, they were much less likely to start just being like there was way fewer like flags of like false flags, right? So I think they were just able to take the intent data and look at it in a different way that was not the like what we'd probably traditionally call like the happy ears or for that a salesperson gets where it's like, oh, it's like my best prospect and I know that they're gonna buy something right now. It's more so like, I see this person. It's probably like I don't think that it's actually somebody there, and they would just do more of the research and figure out like what they were trying to do versus jumping right in. So I think it's how you use that intent data, but yeah,
Thank you, Jessica.
yeah. I don't know if I missed any other questions.
Uh, what we'll do is we'll process some of this other stuff.
Okay.
One of the questions had to deal with in having worked in fintech. The question was asked: do they have to come from the field? And I responded in the chat that probably that's more of an SE role, versus this is more probably less. But I don't want to answer on your behalf.
No, I think that's a good point. If you're thinking about it from a fintech perspective, I think it would fit the same way, right? Like again, we were selling into a developer persona, so somebody who had that like interest and had done coding worked really well. I think if it's somebody, because if you have a traditional SDR coming in and like they'll learn the talk track and they'll understand fintech, but if you bring in somebody who is really like interested and understands that industry, I think it would likely get you that same benefit.
Thank you.
Okay, so what did it actually look like? And I talked a little bit about this in the actual deal example, but you have that initial activity, right? They're doing something, they're on the website, you can see what they're coming back from. Maybe they've done a sign up and they're replying, and then the TDR is just looking, right? Because at that point, that's where you want the like investigative mindset to come in. They're seeing who it is. Is it someone who is actually doing like a project for themselves? Is it somebody who maybe they're doing a larger project? There were a lot of subsets of like thinking about I could use this as an example because I know it's on the website. Like thinking about NBC, right? There's probably like 100,000 employees at NBC, maybe more. I don't know. They're huge. There's probably a lot of people who are working at NBC who are doing like their own side projects, and then people who are doing subset projects that are actually a part of NBC. So like trying to navigate where does this person fit and what's their use case. Then again, getting that less of a, do you want to take a sales call? Like, I see you signed up. Obviously, this means you want to give me $1 million. Let's have a meeting. Awesome. And being more so, hey, I see that you've created an account. If you run into any issues, um, let me know. I'm your technical concierge. I'm here to help. The biggest piece from like a marketing side on that is making sure that the messaging is aligned to the HubSpot messaging, because obviously they're going to get like onboarding emails, right? They're going to get a good amount of things that at this point everyone knows when they get a HubSpot email, like it's coming from HubSpot, like I can hit unsubscribe if I don't want it. But making sure that it feels like an actual personal email, even if it's like a sub tier account that isn't going to get a personal email, but it doesn't feel like, why am I getting this HubSpot email on day one? And then I'm getting this like email that looks like it's from HubSpot 10 minutes later. So there's a lot of coordination in terms of like making sure the cadences match what you're doing in HubSpot. And then again, just like figuring out, is this a project that's feasible using our product? Because I know most SDRs hate to hear this. Not every person who comes inbound and comes to the website is a great fit. So are they a good fit? Like, is what they're trying to build something that you can accomplish using our product? Or did they Google something and they are going to spend a lot of time doing something that we don't actually do? Again, it builds that trust and rapport, and then continuously engage, figuring out, are you running into blockers? Is this something I can help with? Do I need to bring in a product like lead on our side if it's a top tier account? And then do I pass it off? The one thing that we ran into that I assume anyone who has like a PLG type motion would run into is, and then we had a nuance to this that made it even more super fun and interesting, are there are a ton of people who are like spinning up things, their own companies, like very small, like they tend to be quite like loud because they're trying to get something done, and they will take just as much time, if not more, as your large target enterprise accounts. So it was a good amount of enablement for the TDR to have them understand, just because someone is like super loud and it's like a very small, right there. We sold into a lot of like dating apps and like apps. So there were a lot of very fast moving apps that are like, I'm gonna like I'm raising like I'm gonna have $1 million. I'm gonna have 100 million users. How many users do you have now? I'm not in production. Okay. So like helping them navigate through like what are the disqualifications versus it being again, like back to the happy years, every single person is a perfect fit. And like, this person has 100 million users and they're gonna be like, Kim Kardashian's gonna be on their app, right? Thinking through things that actually happened. Well, no, like they have 0 users, there is no app, like they're not in the app store. Like, let's get through some first hurdles first, but making them understand that's not a great use of their time, and where to spend their time. We also had a like a startup package where people got like a secondary level of support for any startups that like met if you had less than 10 employees and like less than 50K of funding. So they were like they had a good amount more than a general free account and also wanted a lot of support. So making sure that it wasn't a huge time suck and didn't take away from the mission of the program, which is really driving like good enterprise pipeline. Awesome. I'll keep going. Yeah, so what to do, we saw what people were doing in the product. It was super consultative. At the end of the day, like the giving people the white glove experience was like the mantra of the program because what makes this different than them just showing up and getting, oh, do you want to take a sales meeting? Which they did not want to take a sales meeting. If they want to take a sales meeting, they would hit book a demo, right? Which is what I continue to reinforce with the TDRs. It's like if they wanted to talk to us, there's a big button that they can hit and they can click a time and they can book a time with us, right? If they want to buy something, they can click, they can swipe their credit card, they can very easily do that. Like these people are not necessarily looking to engage with us. So let's figure out who of these people are these top accounts that we're spending tons of money marketing to, tons of time outbounding to, that we can filter back, get them back to the right people, and help them with their projects. So a lot of coordination with marketing, right? Making sure that we're bringing all the things that we're learning back to them. A lot of coordination with like the account executives, with the SDRs. I mean, obviously the TDRs and SDRs never ever fought over who got that lead because everybody always agrees and it's, you know, a very fair thing that it's not my lead, it's your lead. Oh no. So that was definitely one that came up. So figuring out like how much are you willing to spread the credit? And at the beginning, it was really, you know, we're not going to give one person credit, right? Everyone can get quota credit until we figure out a way where it's like a very clear line in the sand, which never happened. But a lot of just making sure everyone is on the same page in terms of like what are the accounts we're looking at, what does success look like, how are we treating these people who are coming to the website, and what does that experience look like?
So, Jessica, there's another monster in the room here. The With a lot of companies, even larger ones, the let me be unfiltered. The um the documentation sucks. Okay, and it's whether it's outdated or lacking. And what people who haven't gone down the AI path, seem to think that AI is going to solve this. And the reality is, if I put an AI bot there, if your documentation sucks, then what's going to happen is the AI bot is going to be spitting out bullshit because the API change. You give me API 2.3 when you're already on 3.4.
Hmm.
So where does that fit in here? Yeah, because I see the TDR being abused because you haven't invested in documentation. Your online chatbot is confused. And this also plays into where a company, it could tie into company size, but I've just seen, I've seen this with larger companies, and obviously it's going to be there with smaller companies.
Yeah. I mean, Rob, you're saying the documentation isn't updated on every single, oh, I mean we ran into that because people would like find docs and you'd be like, where like, oh, like we thought that repository was gone. Like, oh, well, thank you for letting us know that that's still there and this documentation is totally outdated. Part of it is just that the TDR understood like what the right, like what is the path when someone hits this issue, because there were trends where it'd be like, oh, I see them doing this. I see them like looking at this. And then you would ask them, like, what are you trying to do? What is the error that you're seeing? And then knowing we had a Slack channel that was very specific for like, I just got this message. What should I do? So the support was in there and they would chime in and be like, oh, do this or tell them this or have them go to Zendesk. I think it's impossible for AI unless you really have a huge team of people keeping up with your documentation. Like it changes so frequently. I mean, maybe it's not like knock on wood, impossible for AI to keep up with it, but it's hard because you've trained the model and then it's gonna take time if you update it to like then pick back up on what you've updated. So I think the TDR comes in as a supplement to point people, but then also if it's just something that can't be fixed, try to help them navigate to a way that, like, if they're a customer, getting them to support, getting them to their customer success team. A lot of people would come like looking for specific documentation, not realizing that they already had a dedicated Slack channel. So it's like being somewhat of a traffic cop to get them to the right place because it's this issue that until every company like doubles their teams that keeps documentation up to date, I don't think that there's a different solution outside of having somebody who knows like what the right answer is when somebody asks it to take that question.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Jessica. I think that sums it up, wonderfully. Okay, we're at the 10-minute mark, so I don't want to slow you down anymore. I know you have a couple more slides to cover.
Yeah. And I think I think we're almost at the end, I bet. Yeah, okay. So that's the last slide. So we'll crank through this one. Um, so I think in terms of, like I mentioned, with the top account, we hit this like over and over again, which was amazing to see. It uncovered conversations within target accounts, but there was a lot of, again, coordination in terms of that list, working with marketing to make sure that like those personas were getting the right ads, they were coming back to the website because it's not like without the marketing driving people to either sign up or to come to the website, the TDR would probably just be looking at a blank screen all day of nobody there. So a lot of coordination in terms of marketing, SDR, like account executive, all the different pieces that actually drove people to the website. Um, and then, like I mentioned, the the developers and they appreciated it, right? Like I would get emails that were like very sweet, just like, thank you so much. Your TDR helped me so much with this project and unblocked me. That said, there are a lot of places where the TDR could get sucked in and spend a lot of time that ended up driving no pipeline. So it did take a good amount of like watching what they were doing and constant coaching in terms of like spend time here, not here. And then late and early stage engagement, but I mean, some things were just noisy, and it was very hard to then say, okay, this is the moment in time that actually turned this into a meeting. Unless the TDR was actually setting the meeting, it was oftentimes hard to say, like, all of the work that they did with this person and like helping them support them through the docs, getting them through some of their hurdles, like showing them what to do, turned into this then self-serve close one. Those were the ones that were even trickier because it's like, oh, wow, I see that they actually turned into a paid, like they swiped their card. It's like, oh, okay. Like, how do we actually track that? The ones that got scheduled as meetings, super easy to track. Self-serve, really hard to track.
Yeah, terrific.
Um,
Thanks, Jessica. Aaron, Aaron, feel free to chime in on voice as well. Uh, Aaron was talking about a role he created, which seems to be, you know, he was recommending, and Aaron, I'm going to summarize, saying TDR could be a great fusion role. They can mix the time cleaning up the product service, technical docs, customer use case, etc. Could also work using what he created a role as a VDR, which is kind of a, yeah, Aaron, if I'm summarizing this right, an early stage, SE. So I think we
Yeah.
covered kind
So,
of the handoff. But Aaron, do you want to expand on that a little bit? I want
yeah.
to make sure I
So,
capture the essence of your question.
so first thing, thank you. Fantastic presentation, and it's really great to work with a practitioner who's really kind of gone deep into the process and built something. I find that it's strange because I came originally from a technology centric roles and even up to P&L, and then I've kind of swung hard back into sales the last 7 years. That there's actually just not a lot of innovation on the front end in organizations, and so the thing that I connected to is number one, we spend way too much money chasing way too qualification. That was just sort of like this big, light bulb, which I don't think I was Einstein on this thing, but the politics of it, of marketing, sales, service, everybody, they cannot push things down, right, to a, let's say, cost aligned roles for that weaker qualification signal. So what I sort of did was kind of inverted. It wasn't some great plan. I sort of completely stumbled into it, where I took SEs that were basically burnouts. Your best SEs know all the truth, right? They can see someone's walking gait and they're like, nope, they're not buying, right? I mean, they just have so much background with so many emotions for so many years, and I pushed them down to be really managers of this qualification process, which they found exciting because many times they would always be frustrated about, why aren't we asking this question right now? Why are we doing this, right? And because they have the experience, they've gone through this, hundreds of times, thousands in some cases. So that's what I called the VDR role. But I always had this gap until today of the junior technical role, because that VDR, the goal there is I want them to be more orchestrator. I don't want them to, well, okay, I want to help you over here, but I got to disappear because I got to assemble the microwave for a week, and then that's it. And then, everybody else is standing around. So having these TDRs as sort of the junior future SEs, or some other fork, I think is fantastic, because as products become either more technical or people get lost in the product, because I found product does a terrible job on average of trying to make their product sellable from a use case alignment standpoint. And then everybody else in the front end has to figure that out. And so I think having TDRs and VDRs together, to simplify, can be really, really powerful. So once again, thank you. And thank you for the forum here. I mean, this is a fantastic forum and conversation space around real world, which is great.
Yeah. Thank you, Aaron. So we're coming up, and I think it sums up best. You've lived this. So big thanks. So Jessica, pulling on Aaron's comment, let's work to the close, and I'm going to hand it over to Pam in just a second. So
yeah,
I want to respect everybody's time, but Jessica, I'll let you drive to the close.
awesome. Yeah, and Aaron, I'd say that so we used SEs, and I've probably used SEs for the last 7 years doing this for forecasting as well, because I spot on SEs are the ones who can be like, oh no, like they're not going to buy, like they're not even close, like they're not even building, like they're so far away from like what the AE is saying. So having like a very specific forecast category that is just like SE red, yellow, green, or like dead deal, and it like how misaligned it would oftentimes be to the AEs, but again, using the TDR in tandem to that, where it's like, okay, the like top of the funnel is here, and then you're using the SE in like the middle of the funnel to really like drive deals forward and point out some of the gaps. It worked really well in tandem. But TDR program, I loved it. It was like this thing that came out of watching terrible conversations with SDRs, which I mean, I love SDRs. I've been building SDR teams for probably we'll call it 10, 11 years or so. So very, very much love that. But it was a time that things weren't working. And when it doesn't work, you got to try something new. So happy to give any specific details to anyone that would ever want them. This was really fun.
Okay. Excellent, Jessica. Thank you. Thank you very much. Presentation was great. And I echo Aaron's comments. I've lived and died this, and I wish I had thought of it. But this is a terrific thing. I think you're onto something very, very strong. And like every SAMI call, think about it. Look at your pipeline. And if you're seeing stuff happen at this particular stage, maybe a little TDR dust on the funnel may help quite a bit. So, Jessica, thank you very much. I'm going to hand it over to Pam. We've got what's coming up next, and we've got some interesting sessions. We'll throw some rocks at the tech stack next month. I hope you don't mind, and we'll cover that because that also is not a panacea. But Jessica, thank you very much, and Pam, over to you.
Okay, thank you, Rob. And yes, let me add my thanks to you, Jessica. I love that this was a from the trenches story today, so practical. And I think we understand this role a lot better and how it contributes to revenue. So again, thanks for joining us and sharing your story. This recording will be available next week via the Meetup group. So if you've registered for the session, you will get the link. And we've got 2 more sessions coming up this fall. We just secured, hot off the presses, Dom Colasante, and that's going to be on Wednesday, October 29th at 8 a.m. And the session is going to be titled Marketing's High Stakes Moment, Reinvent or Be Replaced. Well, that sounds provocative. That should be an interesting one. We'll be posting this session to Meetup soon so that you can register. It's not there quite yet. But our November session is posted and open for registrations. The title of that one is called From Lead to Loyalty, How Data Lakes Supercharge Sales and Marketing. In fact, one of our November speakers has been on today's call, Adele Grog. Just hello, Adele. She and her co-presenter Adam will be joining us. Now that's going to be a special day and time. We're going to be doing a Tuesday and we're going to do noon Eastern because of where our speakers are located. So consider this a lunch and learn session. We will officially announce it right after we close this session so that you'll get the meetup alert. So with that, thank you for joining us today. Have a great day and we'll see you in October.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.